A few months ago I built a cap shooter out of Lego, and I've since taken it apart again, but Kurt has been clamoring after it ever since. So I've been experimenting with building a very simple one out of wood. So this contraption is just clamp together pieces of wood to see if the concept works. So I used that to come up with dimensions for sort of a design, and I'm making that out of some pre-varnished plywood because I figure that will slide better with these caps. I need a slot down the middle of this piece of wood, and I don't want any chip out, so I'm pre-scoring it. This is the trigger, and it goes in this slot, pivots on a pin on the front, but I haven't actually given any thought how I get that pin in there. So I think I'll just cut a slot on the bottom. So I need to keep this from falling out on the bottom, and I also need to push it up so that this can catch the cap. And I made this little metal thing that goes on here, which pushes right there, keeps it from falling out, and pops that up. I just need to screw it on with some very short screws. Now with the rubber band in place, I can pull this and it latches onto here. Except I need something to hold this cap down when it's back here until I push the trigger. I just made this fancy block to hold it down. Now I just gotta work out where it needs to go. I think right about here. I need a little bit of space behind it for the rubber band. Yes! I anticipate the kids will be playing a lot with this, and I don't want them messing around with the spring mechanism, so I made this block that fits on here, and that also props up this whole thing at an angle. So the nice thing is, this thing is easy enough to load. I think the kids will be able to do it themselves. Next step is building a handheld version of this cap shooter. So this is the first time I'm using a dado blade in years. I don't like them very much, but in this case I have enough parts that it makes sense. Right now these slots are 21 millimeters wide. I need them to be 33 millimeters wide. I worked out I need an extra 0.23 inches on each side, Y inches, because my dial indicator is in inches. So 1, 2, 3, and 0.3 there. That's where I need the fence. Now I'm going to cut this slot in these pieces. That's this slot. And the nice thing about making a whole bunch of these is it's worth the time to jig things up on my slot mortiser. The annoying part is it takes a long time to set it up. And the bits I'm cutting out of plywood here are the triggers for 10 of these cap shooters. The tear out's pretty bad on some of them. I printed out a few more of these templates, and I actually made this part a little bit thicker because that's awfully thin on some of them. And I'll be cutting that on top of this part here, so there's going to be less tear on the bottom. I cut 10 of those slots, but only filmed one. Next I gotta drill the holes in here. That's for this thing to go in here and pivot on. The next thing I'm making here is a little holder that goes on top that holds the cap down until I pull the trigger. And I had some second thoughts about whether I'm cutting that in the right position, so I'm checking it against the cap and making very minor adjustments. I made those cap holders in pairs of 2, so I have a bigger piece to hold, and later I cut them in half. These little trapezoidal bits I'm cutting here are the extensions for attaching the rubber band to. And I'm sanding all the edges on those round before I glue them on. I've glued 3 of those together like this, but getting those 2 parts lined up at the same time is really hard because it tends to drift. So I've been gluing them just by weighting them down like that on one side only, and then the other side I just prop it up on another piece like that, and then I can put this stuff on here and a weight. I'm gluing on the grips the same way because it's easier to line up that way. I have to put the weight on the very edge here so that it's over the center of the joint here. This slot has a half depth extension on this side. I didn't show cutting that. I actually cut those freehand afterwards. And that little notch in the trigger fits in there. And that keeps the keeps this from coming up too far so that I can slide the cap over that without catching the end of it. A nail goes in the side here to hold that in place, and I tie a rubber band to the trigger to pull it up. And now they're all assembled and varnished. My Christmas presents for 2019. Well, stick them up! Now you don't need all my fancy tools to make one of these. I made this one with more basic tools using a set of plans they'll have for sale, and this one is actually modified to shoot juice bottle caps. I'll have a separate video about making that one.